Hello and welcome to the Alt Asset Allocation podcast. Today's interview is with DeFi Dad. If you didn't get the idea from his name, this episode is very much all about decentralized finance, or DeFi, and DeFi Dad is, well, he's a dad. So DeFi Dad is a DeFi super user and an educator. He tinkers and explains with all the wild experiments that are going on within the DeFi ecosystem in crypto. I've known DeFi Dad for quite some time now, and there aren't many more people who are as plugged into the inner workings of DeFi as he is. Are you interested in knowing what DeFi is, where we are currently, and why it's important, and where it might be going? You won't want to miss this episode. Before you listen, please don't forget to like or subscribe to the podcast, or even better, leave a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and or give this video a thumbs up. These little things really help, and I really, really appreciate it. All right, DeFi Dad on Decentralized Finance. Enjoy. DeFi Dad, excited to have you on today. What people didn't see was about 30 minutes of us catching up beforehand, but yeah, excited to officially start the podcast now and have you on. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, man. No, thanks for having me. We'll probably talk about this at one point or another, but we have a lot in common, just having grown up we both grew up in the great state of Indiana. So we don't live there anymore, which is normally what happens to many people who live in Indiana away. But yeah, no, I still feel like you're one of my high school friends that I like. It's easy to catch up with you and just kind of shoot the shit. Like, we're back in Indiana. So
it's awesome. Well, you played a sport in college too, right? That's how that conversation came up.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it was this is one of those things. So for my listeners, I mean, I've known you, DeFi Dad, for a while now. I obviously don't call you DeFi Dad when we're not on a podcast because that would be weird.
Make him call me Daddy.
Yeah, as you do. One of those things is true. Yeah, you're one of these people from the internet, from the space, who now, I know you, but I haven't officially met you in person. Oddly enough,
that is so funny. You're right.
Crazy.
Yeah, we've never met. But yet,
the conversation of where you from never really came up until it was kind of an auxiliary part of a story or something. So it's always interesting to find out. Oh shit, we grew up in the same state. It's wild.
Yeah, this even goes to, this is probably one of the things we should talk about is the Ethereum or like greater DeFi community. It's kind of like a digital nation. And I've mentioned this to you, of course, before, but we moved across the country about a year ago from the West Coast to the East Coast. And I am normally a very social person. Obviously, we moved during COVID, so I haven't really been able to meet as many people until recently. But actually, I think it stems more from like this like incredible problem of the Ethereum and greater DeFi community has introduced me to so many friends online. Like I have so many friends like this where we haven't met, but we obviously we work together, we talk a lot, and I have more in common with this community. So I've like jokingly said, like, we don't have many people over to barbecue anymore because, again, a lot of my friends don't live locally. But weirdly enough,
metaverse barbecue, do it.
Yeah. But weirdly enough, you feel like a stronger kinship with people across the world, to the point there's a number of people I didn't even know where they lived and had really gotten to know them well, and was like, oh wow, you're in Singapore or Malaysia. I had no idea. I guess we won't be meeting up, at any conference anytime soon. But yeah, so I'll give it back to you, Ben.
I mean, so for my listeners, I mean, this is all about alternative investments. So crypto is one part of this, and DeFi is certainly a increasing segment within crypto. So for my listeners, I mean, within our space, you're famous, DeFi Dad, but for those other listeners that maybe don't know you,
at that. I'm famous. That's like, if I say this all the time, if my wife like heard that, she'd be like, he's a joke. Actually,
you're like, have you seen my Twitter? People appreciate me. No, but for my
No,
listeners,
I appreciate
let's
that.
hear a little bit of
Yeah, yeah.
your background and how you got into crypto and what you're doing now in the space. I think would be helpful to set the context for this.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly, the origin stories in general, I think they're always good to remind everyone. Like we all sort of start in a similar place, not really knowing much about crypto, and so the sooner you get started and dive down the rabbit hole, the better. So my background is many years ago. I was in chemistry. There's actually a lot of people in the physical sciences that end up finding their way into crypto. A lot of PhD dropouts or former engineers. And anyways, I ended up starting to work in software after I left a chem PhD program. And, I kind of worked a bunch of typical software jobs, which eventually led me to the Bay Area. So I worked in some very typical sort of Silicon Valley type jobs. I didn't work for Salesforce, but you could think of some of the companies I worked for kind of like a Salesforce. And around 2017, so this is when I got into crypto. So I still think of myself as being a relatively new person to the space, even though now it's been about 4 years. So I started hearing about Ethereum and Bitcoin, and my friends had mentioned, based on the sort of stuff you love, which was like whether we were talking about like politics or in this case like governance, I'm talking about talking in general just about like money, the economy, and so on. They're like, you would love this stuff. You got to dive into it. So because I worked in software where the idea was you normally would sell something like a platform like a Salesforce, and then you could plug in all these different applications. So when I started to learn about Ethereum, a lot of light bulbs went off in my head. It was like, wow, this is software that no one essentially owns. It's like a platform that is run by a community. But then I definitely from the start had this idea of we're going to see all these applications explode, and each one that comes out is going to sort of strengthen the other use cases. And you'll over time you'll build a stack of these that you come to depend upon. And we're in the early days of this. It's hard to foresee that. But so I was trying to connect what was like enterprise software, which is the world I was in, with what I was seeing with money applications that would come to Ethereum. And I would say by the end of 2017, I had bought a little bit of crypto. I wasn't really, I wasn't like a big bag holder or anything yet. I felt like most people, like a genius because it was a bull market, and what little I did buy went up in price. And then it all came crashing down in 2018. But in mid 2018, I started working at Consensus. I was going to meetups. I was listening to podcasts. I went to some live Ethereum conferences, and I just sort of discovered, that I had a lot in common with a lot of people in the audience who just really felt like, the world could be a better place. Not that we need to, burn it all to the ground, but that like there is a fairer world if you can build a newer finance system that sort of emulates the way that we use the internet, where you can do all sorts of powerful things by just having an internet connection. Money, however, is like one of the missing constructs of that internet. And I ended up working at Consensus then for about 2 years. I got to work across a bunch of different projects. It's a very interesting place to have gotten started at because it was in the middle of the bear market. And if you can get started working now or in whenever we do have a bear market, if we're in a bear market now, it's just a wonderful time to be a part of a team building because you focus on what is the end goal that's so much further out in the future, and you stop worrying about the short-term price action. Like you focus on the mission. And so anyways, I had a good run there with Consensus, kind of working in like a marketing project management role. And then I ended up working my whole last year of that 2-year stint on the Ethereal Summit. And that was like a a bunch of global events that we would do, whether it was in New York or we did one in Tel Aviv. And before the pandemic, we were planning to do lots more, but those turned into virtual conferences. And I got to meet a lot of cool people. It was funny because it was kind of coming full circle for me at the time. I had gone to an ethereal. That was sort of the tipping point for me, realizing that I'm up late at night reading white papers, listening to podcasts, reading Chris Bernitzky's book Crypto Assets, and I'm obsessed. Like I have to work in this space. But the ethereal event in San Francisco really is what convinced me like I have to start over in this new industry. And then funny enough, I got to work on it. So I focused on storytelling, creating a lineup that would get people excited to want to build on Ethereum, which is actually how you and I got to know each other because you were at Tukey at the time. And then finally, that led in mid 2019, I was simply, one of many people holding Ether and Bitcoin. And I was prepping, these lineups and trying to get to know the speakers, trying to understand like what are the topics that we should be talking about at an Ethereum focused event. And, DeFi was starting to become like a term that was widely understood to mean like money applications on Ethereum. And so I was prepping for the event by trying out all the applications and then meeting the speakers and, proposing that they present. And my background had really been, I was a salesperson at one point and kind of worked in like a solutions engineer role. So my whole job was demoing software. I never thought I would actually get to use that skill set I thought that was like 10 years out. Suddenly, the summer of 2019, I'm trying Compound. Maker had been working for quite a while by that point. I remember trying Pull Together. I tried Xerion for the first time to track my portfolio. Anyways, my mind was sort of blown. I was, Token Sets too was another one. So I'm using these and now I'm starting to like brag to my family and friends, like Ethereum works, like this is real. So I started to tweet about it and sort of share all of the daily escapades of trying the applications and write up tutorials and write up threads. And eventually, I don't know, that caught wind, that caught fire with Gitcoin grants. I was able to get some support from that. And I started a YouTube channel, and the videos, I think, helped to propel more people's interest in trying these. And then I finally ended up at Zapper. And so that for the last year, I actually have worked full time at Zapper, which has been really a life-changing, career-changing experience. Zapper, in case anyone's unaware, it's a dashboard for your DeFi portfolio. Just connect a wallet or connect as many wallets as you want, and you can visualize where your assets are. You can visualize, any of your debts and what's the net worth of your portfolio. And you can do that on Ethereum, BSC, Phantom, or Polygon. So I've been there the last year working in sort of like a marketing, customer support strategy type role. And now I am an advisor to Zapper. So I'm going to be focusing a little more on just trying to help as many projects as I can. And excited to do that.
Yeah, I actually had Seb on back in September of last year was when I published it, but right in the middle or early days of DeFi summer, probably like June, interviewed Seb of Zapper. So that's episode 6 of the Alt Asset Allocation if you want to learn more about Zapper. And recently I just had Mariano all about Maker and DAI and their importance and role within the whole greater DeFi crypto ecosystem. So definitely some good stuff in there. I love what you were saying about, redesigning the system in a more efficient, fair way, and this utopian dream that kind of pulls us all together within this space. So on your Twitter, you describe yourself as a DeFi super user and educator. We've talked a bit on this podcast about DeFi, but how do you explain DeFi to a newbie when you're talking about going crazy about this? Like, how do you break it down to them? Yeah.
Yeah, it's it actually starts, I think, with asking them questions about what's their background in terms of do they have a bank account? Like, do they trade stocks? So if I don't know someone, I would more generally describe DeFi as um, it's a new alternative to the banking system, but it's built with software that is more often than not run on Ethereum. And these are money applications that allow you to transact peer to peer, and they use the assets or the tokens or whatever you want to call it. They are digitally scarce. So if you can wrap your mind around the concept of like people talk about Bitcoin as digital gold, you could also call Ether digital gold as well. Once you understand that simple sort of like, I've got something that we all recognize as valuable and it's provable that it's scarce, and I have a claim on that asset, you apply that ethos to DeFi or to what we're building with DeFi. And it's everything from trading to lending and borrowing and options and insurance. And then you have, we'll go down the rabbit hole, of course, with projects like Charge Particles, which we also work together on. And suddenly you've got this idea of digital goods, which is really what's going to power the future of the metaverse. You know, at the end of the day, DeFi is DeFi. And, you know, again, if you're familiar with just what is Bitcoin, what is Ether, this is built for a digital first world. We currently live in this, like, you know, this meathead world where, you know, we meet up in person and, you know, you go to a coffee shop and you pay someone in cash or you can transact with a credit card. But all of the payments that we use in our world, they're essentially band-aid solutions to a world that doesn't have digital money. So all the banks, at least in the US, they basically have their own like software system. And then there's a different software that sort of connects all of them. And that software, in many cases, it's a very old system. And that's part of the reason, like, if you receive a check or even if you Venmo someone something, the money doesn't actually clear for normally a few days. And that's because we're dealing with this old antiquated system that's sort of like, you know, it's like technically behind the scenes, everything's running as slow as possible, but we're talking about a system where fintech has sort of made it all look pretty. That's what fintech did. Fintech took the old shitty money system and it put a new polish on it. And so we said, oh, wow, like my money is digital now, but it's not. You know, you're just transacting in a bunch of IOUs. Whereas if you and I send stable coins to one another, that's it. You know, that's instant money that we can send 24/7, 365. And it is, I want to say that DeFi fits, there's two really different personas that I think about. One of them is people that have the privilege to choose to use DeFi. So that's me, that's you, that's basically anyone in the US, I would say, has the privilege of living in a country that, even if you are upset with the government and you disagree with them at times, we have a privilege of we can normally depend on the fact that like our money won't be seized overnight from some like authoritarian regime. There are other people though who desperately need DeFi, who desperately need, you know, a digital store of value that they can transfer without anyone having access to it and being able to take it away from them. And those are people in other parts of the world, in a lot of developing countries. So that's probably where like my like mind and my heart are in it for that long term. But right now we're still in the early like tinker phase of DeFi where, you know, someone like me, even though I've started with very little money in DeFi, you know, I at least, again, I was not having to escape an authoritarian to hide my money in a digital payments network. I was basically able to say, you know what, instead of using my bank, which I trusted already, I'm going to start using DeFi to make alternative investments. And we're just starting to hit this inflection point where the user experience has become friendly enough that anyone should be able to transact as long as they have an internet connection.
Absolutely. No, and some great stuff there. I think it's all of this. I, I I've been transacting almost exclusively in crypto over the past probably year and a half, and I had to send a bank transfer the other day. I had forgotten what 1 to 3 business days feels like when there's a holiday weekend and all the things, and the ability for instant finality. Hey, DeFi Dad, do you need $10? I'll send it in less than $10, 10 minutes. It's in your wallet, held there, like ownership has been transferred to you. So just reimagining this whole financial system with that in mind is so powerful. So you mentioned that we're kind of in the early stages of DeFi and tinkering, and I agree. You are kind of smack dab in the middle of all of these massive trends and all of this innovation that's happening. So maybe just backing up, I mean, this is mid-July 2021. What is give me like a current state of DeFi? What's happening? What's needed? Just spell it out a little bit more for me.
Yeah. So a year ago, one of the most exciting topics was the idea of yield farming. And for anyone that's new to this, yield farming or liquidity mining, it's basically getting paid to be an early user. And in most cases, you have to lend some money, or providing liquidity is essentially just lending money, but providing liquidity is the formal way to say it. And so you're getting paid to be an early user, and so that was a year ago, and even a year later, there's so many programs. I mean, at this point, there's hundreds of these programs. Some of them have better returns. Some of them are easier to earn with because maybe they require just stable coins. So like if you're sitting in dollars, and if a good example, I'm trying to think of one I just did. Let's
Well, all of
say,
them have different risk return profiles as well. So some of them
yes,
are very risky and pay 10,000% APY. Some of them are
yes,
not that risky and they pay 1,000 APY, and it's like a hidden gem. So, but it's
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
a number of different ones.
And like I think that so this concept of providing liquidity, it in a way is similar to if you were an early user of a software. I always use Facebook as an example. Facebook came out around the time that I was in college. So I was an early user. I was one of the first universities to use it. I've never seen any return from it. I didn't get like an airdrop of Facebook stock when they went live. But that is essentially what happens in DeFi. DeFi applications need liquidity to be successful in almost every scenario. And so these protocols, or these decentralized communities, they'll pay you to provide liquidity, or essentially to lend money. And so, I mean, it's been a remarkable opportunity if you can find a protocol or an application that you really believe in. Like I would give an example: charged particles. I can go in and provide liquidity to the program that you guys are running. I can either stake the Ionix token, or I can provide liquidity in the Ionix ETH pool and stake that token. Staking, by the way, just means deposit, if anyone's new to that. So what am I doing here? I'm locking up tokens, but if I am already long that token, if I believe that Charged Particles is going to be a successful project and I want to accrue more of it, well, this is a hell of a win for me, because I'm already holding the token. So I might as well provide liquidity and allow other people to potentially gain access to it. That strengthens the project. And then in the meantime, I'm being rewarded. In this case, your guys' program is weekly. So I'm getting a weekly disbursement of these tokens. And so these, one of the keys to me, a year from last summer, so summer of 2020 was a lot of people losing their minds, discovering that they can earn money this way. And there was a lot of new projects that were, vaporware, that launched amidst some very blue chip projects, but there were a lot of projects that were just forking, launching a new token, and then people were providing liquidity while receiving this new inflationary token. And what's changed is I think we've learned a year later that it is much better to understand that these returns are fleeting at a very high, like, you can earn 1,000% APY, but if you can only earn it for 5 days, take 1,000, divide by 365, multiply by 5 days. You're not, it's still awesome, but it's a fleeting opportunity. So I think what has changed is there's definitely some more long-term thinking in the community. Now, the market is obviously less bullish in July 2021 than it was a year ago. A year ago, everything was just sort of up and to the right. Now we're sort of in this choppy range, but I can attest that my portfolio reflects yield farming where I am already long and like a believer in that protocol. So yes, I'm trying to earn more Aave. I'm trying to earn more SNX. I'm trying to earn more Ionics. I'm trying to earn more Curve. These are tokens behind protocols that I personally want to hold for years. So I no longer have to buy the dip. I no longer have to essentially try to trade my stable coins or fiat into a token. I'm actually sitting on, certain tokens where I'm able to put them to work. So they're productive assets that are continually earning me more money. That is the most remarkable change from a few years ago. A few years ago, it was get on a centralized exchange like Coinbase or Binance and trade your US dollars or whatever fiat you're into that token. And then when you're done, when you think it's gone as high as it's going to go, if you're a trader, you're trying to sell back into that. Now we have over 100 billion in stable coins just on Ethereum. And so it makes it's a different world because even those that are selling, there's nothing wrong with taking profits and selling tokens, but those that are selling are keeping their money on Ethereum or on Polygon or on BSC, whatever chain, and they're lending those tokens. So the crypto world years ago was about the promise of us all adopting this on-chain, finance system. But the truth is that we were taking advantage of this new network that's more global and more censorship resistant, but we were all using crypto banks. So we basically reinvented the bank, a bank that is willing to accept crypto and to exchange our dollars or other fiat for tokens. And then they would do the dirty work of actually transacting on chain. That has all changed now because now a greater majority of the community, I can't say for a fact that it's a greater majority, but we know a lot more people are living in that system. And I think you and I are a good example. I used to just hold some tokens. I even held them in a hardware wallet. So I really was abiding by the ethos of not your keys, not your coins. But now I'm living in this system. I mean, I have no intention of exiting it. I despite living in the US, I really don't trust the fact that I can exit the system forever. That at some point, I may run into maybe a government that feels threatened. But the beautiful thing is I don't have to worry about that right now. Although I am a law-abiding citizen, I choose to live in this digital finance world that exists. Most of my money is on Ethereum. I have a little bit now on Polygon, and I will say it's not just about the ability to circumvent an authoritarian regime or government. For me, it's about the new opportunity that you're given. And I mean to say that, so if you grew up in a family where you have a wealth manager, probably won't give a shit about anything that I'm saying about this. But if you grew up where we grew up in Indiana, or you grew up in another part of the world where your parents saw cash as like one of the most important things to hold and to hoard and to store. Um, there are so many opportunities to allow your money to earn more money. And once you understand how that finance system works, how Wall Street and other parallels of Wall Street work around the world, you realize that there's all this opportunity out there, but it's about knowing that it exists. There's an information asymmetry that keeps a lot of people out. And I'm not accusing the legacy players of maliciously keeping us out, but I mean, now knowing what I know, yeah, like I look at like the way that we grew up, and I had a great childhood. I always felt like we were well off, but I look at the shitty products that my parents bought into, the few of those, with retail banks, in the 90s, things like mutual funds that were really never returning great returns. And I look at the opportunity that I have knowing that I can be an angel investor. I look at the opportunity of what we have with DeFi though. And what it's done is it's opened up a door to basically rich people opportunities is the way. DeFi opens up the door to becoming a market maker or a liquidity provider is what we call it. And honestly, if DeFi stopped innovating today, just what Uniswap, what SushiSwap, what Balancer, all the other automated market makers, what they offer alone is radical, because they're allowing you to basically to take your assets, throw let's say Ether and DAI into a pool, allow people to trade, earn those fees, and do it with any amount of money. I mean, these are opportunities that technologically didn't exist, but also didn't exist due to certain regulation. And that's the part of DeFi that really gets me the most excited. Is I think that a lot of people that have yet to discover DeFi, their greatest hurdle will be understanding the opportunities that they missed in the legacy system. It's more often than not, it's not what's this newfangled DeFi stuff. Wow, that's crazy that I've heard this over and over again. So people just move money here and there for the sake of trying to earn more of it. Like, isn't that kind of, I've heard the wording, isn't that kind of Ponzi like? No, this is how the finance system works. Your problem is not understanding DeFi. Your problem is not understanding all the opportunity that would have existed if you had $250,000, at Chase Bank. Then you could have participated in these. And so that is going back to your original question of like, what's the trend? I am amazed how educated the community has become. Now we're super small still, and we need to grow a lot. But we have come a long way in 1 year. We've gone from yield farming was such an odd concept to talk about. And there's a lot of flaws in it, like the fact that people are mercenary farming. They're just collecting tokens and then they're dumping it, and it puts sell pressure on the token, and it sort of defeats the whole purpose of the liquidity mining program. But throw that out. It's early days. We're creating a system where all you need is the courage to connect your wallet and the ability to technologically navigate how to self-custody in like an Ethereum wallet or a Matic wallet or whatever wallet. So anyways, that's another long-winded answer to a very unrelated short question you asked me.
No, I think that's highly relevant. I mean, every investment decision you make, every allocation decision you make is an opportunity cost for another one. And your point about information asymmetry is spot on. So it's actually, and that's the purpose of this podcast, right? Is to talk about alternative assets, alternatives to that 60-40 portfolio of mutual funds and bonds that just doesn't work anymore, or it works, but there's a lot of other options that can work better.
Well, and like we have to keep helping people to zoom out and understand that, one of the reasons I fell in love with charged particles when I got to start talking with you guys about the project is DeFi is again, it is not built. I said this earlier. It's not built for the world we live in now. It's built for a truly digital first world. It's built for the metaverse. And so what a lot of people fail to understand is that we live in a world today where we're hyper connected. We've all got smartphones and iPads, and half the stuff in my house I can turn on my car now with an app on my phone, which like blows my mind. But the future to me is us living in a metaverse, and I think by the end of our lifetime, I think it's going to be it's going to feel nearly as lifelike as us talking here, where like you don't notice the heavy goggles on your face, and basically everything just seems hyper real. But even longer term, I mean, God knows, like, I don't know if that's a dystopian or utopian way to look at like where we're going. And you're going to need a finance system. You're going to need a money system that works. And that's what DeFi is. Like, whether it's, it'll probably look, I'm sure, archaic today, 20, 30 years from now, but that's the world that we're going to live in. And if you buy into that, if you buy into the fact that like, even like countries, like the idea of like, I live in the United States, I think these things start to sort of melt away, these constructs, when you live in a digital world. Because like, I can tell you this, I can communicate, you and I are 3,000 miles apart, but like I did a podcast with Bobby from CoinGecko a few months ago. And I mean, man, like I've only met him a few times, but like I feel like I have more in common with him than a lot of my closest friends that live near me. And that's the world I want to live in. That's the world where it no longer matters that you're lucky that you were born in a certain part of the world. I still feel lucky I was born in the United States as compared to other parts of the world where maybe, you grew up without electricity. That is, lucky sperm club. And I want to eliminate that lucky sperm club by making it more possible for us to live in a digital world. If you choose to, maybe the world you live in sucks. Maybe you live in like a 2x2 foot looking garage, like in Ready Player One. You should be able to easily escape that and meet other people, discover opportunities. That's what I thought the internet was about. And I think that's what DeFi is helping the internet. It's coming for your money now. We ate up a lot of the old world with the internet, whether it's Amazon destroying a lot of small businesses, or you could look at it as it made it easier for anyone to order whatever goods they want. This is coming now for money. We've accomplished a lot with the internet, but DeFi is giving us that missing piece that forces us to depend on the legacy world. I could just go.
This is the difference between Internet 1.0, 2.0, and now 3.0, which is where we're going with all of these things. I'd be curious, the psychological impacts of a metaverse and spending so much time in the digital realm will be profound as well, and something that I think will be a interesting hurdle for us as humans, going from this in-person society that we've been doing for a long time to something more digital first. So I think that will be an interesting hurdle as well.
I like the timing of this podcast is perfect because I've been like I had a few conversations over the last day, and it's just my like brain has been exploding. I talked with the founder of Alethea.ai. So this Arif Khan, Arifkhan, and then Alethea's ALETHEA.ai. So they're creating intelligent NFTs or INFTs. So everybody's gotten excited about CryptoPunks and Bored Apes. And I mean, at the end of the day, these are all pictures that are digitally scarce, and in this case they live on the Ethereum blockchain, and that's cool. Like I love I think all these things are really cool. I love digital art that's that's powered by Ethereum. But what could be better than bringing those to life? And so, you know, when you go down the rabbit hole of like what's next, there's just so much that we're going to experience in the next 10 years that people are unaware of. And one of those is, so Alethea is able to basically impart a unique personality using AI to pieces of art. And those pieces of art now can talk to you. They can talk to one another. They can own assets. Like they could eventually own a charged particle, which, in case anyone's unfamiliar with, it's basically it's being able to nest assets. So it's essentially, if we have a charged particle that is like, imagine a piece of art that's an NFT, and I deposit some ether into it. Now it's charged. So long story short, these INFTs, which can talk to you, like there's a Darth Vader one, you can have a conversation with it. And honestly, the hardest part about this is it's just weird to talk to AI and realize that you can ask it whatever you want. And it has its own personality. It will remember things that you've said. Like if you remind it to tell you to take out the garbage or that you have an appointment. And so anyways, we have these INFTs that are going to live in a digital world. So we've got the metaverse, where we're living in a virtual reality. We've got money coming along with DeFi. We've got NFTs, which are digitally scarce goods. And then we're already starting to see AI get combined with this. So now you're bringing to life, like you can do crazy sorts of things. You can bring to life a piece of art, but like, I would love to upload my consciousness to something by the end of my lifetime. Like I hear people talk about, oh, it'd be so dystopian to live on forever. Not me. I would love to do that. That's cool. And I think it would be really cool to be able to upload your consciousness to something like, in this case, an NFT could be like, it could be an INFT with a robotic body, and maybe that's how you like live on forever. So this is all to paint a picture for someone of like, DeFi is not just some alternative investing platform. DeFi is the future. DeFi will power all of the different things that we know exist in our banking system. I have no doubt. I think the banks are going to shrink like small businesses did over the last 10, 20 years. We're going to see banks shrink by 95%, and many of them I think are going to actually go out of business. And I look forward to that. Actually, I have no remorse about that, because I do have a chip on my shoulder with some of the banks. So
I love it. No, really powerful stuff. So going back to DeFi, I love from the ideological standpoint, and I think that's very important. But for this, just focusing like on the investment opportunities for people, and then I think they do tumble down the rabbit hole and find out more about this future utopian state that we dream about and think about. But right now, a lot of this is information asymmetry. It's lending rates are high because borrow rates are high, because the demand is high to do these lending and borrowing activities. So I'm curious, what does the future state of DeFi look like as more people come in? I've talked to multiple people, like traditional world people, that are launching DeFi yield farming funds, which is terrifying. But so it's more capital in the system driving down these rates. Like already lending rates are down significantly. Before it was super easy to find 25-30%, and now there's just a few, and kind of you're like 5 to 15 range is more of like the blue chip sort of rates. So what does DeFi look like in the more near term from like an investment perspective?
I think what you're describing, Ben, is it's cyclical. And a year ago we were at a high where the demand for stable coins and the ability then to lend it, it was at a point where you could lend, let's say USDC for 20-25% or higher just on something like Aave, one of the largest, lending borrowing protocols. But today, the ecosystem, God, like I want to think back to, let me check DeFi Pulse. A year ago, I'm just going to look at the chart here. A year ago, total value locked, and take this with a grain of salt. It's in USD, and the USD value of all assets gone up a lot as well. But it was about 2.39 billion, and that was just on Ethereum at the time. And now, gosh, I'd have to check DeFi Llama as well, but DeFi Pulse mostly reflects Ethereum, and we're at about 57 billion. So whatever that is, whatever multiple that is, like 20, 25 times or more. So 25x from a year ago. So I've heard this argument that, yeah, the more money that comes in, obviously the more money that's there, the less likely you are to have this asymmetric opportunity to be able to lend and earn higher rates. But I think what that fails to acknowledge is all of the new opportunities that are coming. And so right now, we're in this weird spot where the market's very choppy. Everyone is like debating, are we in a bull or a bear market? There's clearly people that are somewhat afraid, so they're getting into stable coins, and those stable coins are then being lent. So it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of supply of stable coins to lend because people are they're moving into stable coins thinking that the market could potentially go down from here. But again, that's just a snapshot of where we are today. And we all know that crypto is a very reflexive market. And so if we were to start to test all-time highs or move back to all-time highs on Ether and Bitcoin, and essentially everything would follow, I have no doubt, like, we will start to see that surge in demand again to borrow, to create leverage positions in DeFi. And so rates will start to skyrocket again. That being said, let's just throw the market out a sec and talk about the fact that we're in a unique place where 4 years ago we really had no applications to use on Ethereum. It was just all a bunch of pie in the sky type stuff. But now we've matured into an ecosystem. DeFi in general, extending beyond Ethereum, is over 100 billion in total value locked. So we're at a place now where no one's going to the exit doors. Like, even those that are the most bearish today on, it doesn't matter what you're thinking about the market, those people are not taking their money and moving it back to fiat. They're leaving it on chain. So what I'm finding, like, one of the trends lately is that there is a lack of appreciation for how many opportunities are actually out there. Now, part of my job is to look for those opportunities, and then I'm trying to share that, and like create tutorials and say, hey, everyone, you can earn 45% right now with inverse finance if you deposit your stable coins. The rate will probably get demolished once that goes out, but these rates are still holding up in many cases, above 20%, well above 10%. So I think, like, my takeaway today, and I would caveat this with this, this is not investment advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and make sure you do your own research. But my take personally with my own portfolio has been that I'm overwhelmed. There's so many opportunities to earn with just stable coins, which is easy. Stable coins, at least. My biggest risk then is going into something that is a scam or something that fails because of like an Oracle failure or like a smart contract bug. So right now, I think is actually one of the best opportunities to get into DeFi, because when you look around, if you follow me, or you should subscribe to the Defiant. You should subscribe to ETH Hub, to the Daily Gwei, to Bankless, to your podcast. To there's so many places you can learn. Check out learn.zapper.fi. If you inundate yourself with all the opportunity in this space, I guarantee you will stop paying attention to whether the market prices are going up and down, because what you hold can be productive and can earn. And so that to me is, I've got like 100 tabs open, and it kills me. There's opportunities I would love to get into where I'm like, actually, there's one on Badger right now with, I think, the curve token and maybe the CVX convex curve token. I swear it's like 60 or 70% just to deposit that token. But those tokens of mine are actually locked up in other opportunities. And even though I could pull them out, I'm like, well, I don't know if this rate's going to hold up, and this other farm is doing well, and I like the other project's token that I'm earning. So this is a day in the life of anyone living in this space. However,
Just
one
a humble
one last
farmer.
just a humble farmer. I would remind everyone too, like I have been very grateful to continue to like work full time with. I worked with Consensus. I worked with Zapper. I'm sure I'll be working full time with another team here soon. I definitely I salute those who can be full time yield farmers. To me, this is about augmenting my ability to earn tokens that I want to sit on long term. If your goal is to be long this space, which I would tell anyone, you are crazy to bet against the DeFi space, and not having exposure, in my opinion, is betting against it. You have all this opportunity to be able to put assets to work, stuff that you already would hold. Essentially, if I have Google stock, in the DeFi world, I can stake my Google stock and earn more Google stock. That concept is radical to people who are new to the space. They're like, wait a sec, well, I was already holding the Google stock because I'm already long Google. And you're like, you mean I can earn more of it just for locking it up? Yeah. Well, how long do I have to lock it up for? In most cases, you don't. Well, don't I have to keep it in there a certain amount of time? No. What about my rewards? Do my rewards vest? In most cases, no. No, like that's how like everything is liquid and available to do whatever you want with. And that's the while we're still $100 billion in total value locked, you shouldn't be complaining that the markets have calmed down recently. You should be taking advantage of learning, diving into projects that you already were long on, checking to make sure that they are like continuing to deliver on their promises, deciding where to put your assets to continue to earn more of those assets. So, oh, and you can go to try zapper.fi/farm. That's one of the best places. It aggregates about 600 opportunities as of today. So you can just search by protocol or token. And, if you're like, I like Aave, search Aave and it'll show you all the different opportunities that are related to the Aave token.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great resource for this and you drop some great like beginner resources. I mean, Bankless, Defiant, DeFi Dad, there's a lot of them out there that really can help navigate through all of these, because there's a lot. Something you brought up that I thought was really interesting. I mean, there's $100 billion worth of stable coins, and that people don't exit back to like the fiat normal world once they're kind of in, because why would you? I mean, you have 0.1% APY on your savings account, and you can put it in something that's rather secure. I'm doing bunny quotes for those listening, but and earn 5% pretty easily. So it's a gigantic difference. But I'd be curious. I mean, do you see a larger issue, more of a corralling the crypto space and making it more and more difficult to exit back to the fiat system? Because ultimately we're still paying taxes in fiat. So eventually you have to come back at least to pay some taxes. How do you think through the risk of like I don't know, cutting off all of the fiat on and off ramps and making it harder and harder and harder to exit back to fiat.
Do you, Ben, do you mean like what if it becomes harder because of like regulation
Yes.
to exit back? Yeah, that's something. I mean, as I've been paid for the past year. I was paid in stable coins, and it was something that like I personally love about Zapper. I love the idea of like dog fooding, and using all of the tools that we, harp about being the future of finance.
We do
And
too.
so,
We don't even have a bank account. So
yeah, exactly. So it's funny, we just at Zapper, right in the last few months, the team finally just got a bank account as well. And, uh, actually Seb, who's the co-founder, Seb Audit, I think his Twitter handle is Seb Audit 26. Seb recently was tweeting about the fact that he was applying for a home loan. I think he's trying to buy his first house. I just bought my first house too. So we were sort of talking about how challenging it is because, and granted, like, I don't want to like, this isn't like, we don't need to play a sad violin for either of us, but I can attest that both Seb and I were very frustrated by how you apply for a mortgage. And, the fact that I have no idea what Seb's portfolio looks like, but all I know is he was having a lot of trouble like I was when he applied. It was essentially like a lot of what he owns isn't really recognized unless he sells it to stablecoin. I went through the same thing. I had to season money before I could actually use it. So I had to sell some crypto, show proof that I sold it too. I mean, it's very like exhausting, show where it came from, that, I'm not a drug dealer or like a weapons dealer. And anyways, that money then sits in an account. And I mean, long story short, I think one of the risks, of this world, but also part of the reason there's a lot of reward in it, is that we are still dependent upon the old system. If you're Mariano Conti and you live in Argentina, Mariano talks about the fact that he keeps everything in DeFi and then he exits to pay things like rent, or I don't know if he has a mortgage, something like that. I do the same sort of thing. I used to live in fiat, and I had a smaller proportion in DeFi. But then over time, you're looking at the rates and you're saying, okay, I can lend my stable coin to Curve and earn 10 to 20% on any given day. And then I can insure it for 2.6% for essentially almost anything happening. Everything is essentially covered if I do it through Nexus Mutual. So now I'm fully insured. I'm lending at a super high rate, like 100x compared to what I could earn in a bank account, which is like, I think my bank was like 0.05%. So, what happened was you start to move money around, and that's what I did. I moved my money into DeFi, and I'm definitely not going back. And the scariest thing to me is what happens if they make it, if whoever, regulator or government, makes it very difficult. My hope and my optimism, though, is that I think that my experience has been that anyone who gets educated on DeFi and or just the simpler concept of like Ether or Bitcoin as a store of value, once they start to understand it, you realize this is not a threat against, I don't think of it as a threat against the US government. My God, the fact that stable coins depend on the US dollar peg, if anything, I think it like reinforces this idea of the US dollar. And so of all governments, I feel like the US should be the most supportive of this. It's essentially making the US dollar more available to everyone across the world, people who might have not had access to it because of a government's regulation. So anyways, that is a scary idea that you mentioned of like, it makes me a little bit worried. But I guess I'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And I'm that's part of the reason I'm so focused on education is I'm hoping that there are thousands of other people who join the movement of trying to teach and educate others, whether they're a senator or whether they're, the person that, made my coffee at Starbucks. The goal is to get everyone understanding how DeFi works so that they can have an opportunity to participate in it. And I think if people are educated, they'll start to realize, hey, this is the future. This is like fighting the internet back in the 90s. Like, do you want to be on that side of history, or do you want to be on the side that realized we're moving towards a more digital first world, a metaverse that, dissolves borders, and a money system that can thrive in that future metaverse?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right. So curious right now, there's a lot of fun, interesting things happening with the DeFi. What areas are the most interesting for you? And what is the most overhyped, overdone niche out there?
Oh man, what's most interesting. I'm not just, it sounds like loaded me saying it because obviously like as a an advisor to charge particles, but I do think this hybrid of using NFTs alongside DeFi constructs is really interesting. And actually, it's become more normal lately in the community. A few months ago, probably 6 months ago, I could see this real divide between what is DeFi and what is NFTs, and now it feels like the communities have really merged together. I can at least attest to the fact that like the DeFi community really seems to gravitate towards like trying to use NFTs. A good example is when at Zapper, when we launched this gamification, the ability to basically get rewarded for opening up your Zapper portfolio, we rewarded people with NFTs. So that's one concept. I'm trying to think another. Anything that improves the user experience is really interesting to me. So like there's some picks and shovel plays. And full disclosure, I am an investor in the Ethereum push notification service, but I'm very excited for us to be able to start to take some of what makes Web 2 so addictive and to be able to use that in Web 3. So if you have a smartphone, you're like me, you probably live off of your push notifications. Like, I look at whatever's on my phone and I tend to not check my email at this point. I actually tend to just rely upon what I see there as to whether or not it's important enough for me to open. I also am accustomed in the Web 2 world to just giving my email address to literally everything. So like my email is probably in 1,000 different places, which leaves me vulnerable to having my information exposed if anyone gets hacked. But what I'm looking forward to with a tool like EPNS, the Ethereum push notification service, is if I have my money in Aave or Charge Particles or whatever, I can essentially subscribe with my wallet address, and that's it. So now I skipped the email. I skipped giving up my personal information. It pseudo creates an identity for me on chain. And now I'm being alerted in real time of there's a governance vote. You're at risk of being liquidated on Aave. There's a new yield farm. There's so many instant communications that I would like to receive instead of going through Twitter, Discord, or email in some cases. So why is the future of money having to rely upon old constructs of communication? There's no direct communication in most cases for protocols, which I think is a really weird gap in the world that we live in. Like, you can't reach out to me if your protocol gets hacked. That's insane that you can't reach out. Like, if you have $10 billion, like I think Curve or Aave at this point have around 10 billion in assets. That is insane that they have to go on Twitter or Discord just to get the word out. Versus in the future, if you subscribe through the Ethereum push notification service, you would be able to instantly receive a notification on your phone like, hey, guys, such and such has been hacked. This is where you can go to learn more. So those sorts of picks and shovels, I'd say a third concept is liquid staking. So Lido.fi. Lido is a good example of this. It's got like, oh my God, Lido has like, by the way, I have no investment in Lido too. And I'll try to disclose if I ever am invested in something. But Lido is where you can stake your Ether and you can earn about 5.8% APR in denominated in Ether. So the rewards are more Ether. So if you're long Ether, why would you not stake Ether and be able to earn more of it? Lido has sort of led the way in terms of liquid staking. If you are an ETH staker for Ethereum 2.0, there's a lot of hard work. You gotta know how to set up a validator, which means like you gotta run a bunch of computer software. And although this stuff isn't super expensive, it's a pain, compared to just hitting the button, on your computer. So I think liquid staking is another like untapped area of DeFi. And so there's lots of platforms that have yet to go live that I understand are going to be going live in the next like 6 to 12 months. So thankfully, I think we all owe some gratitude to Lido for sort of making that concept so like well known in the community that you can just basically swap your Ether for staked Ether, ST. It's Steth. You can do that on like a Zapper exchange, or you could go to like Curve, and that's been a huge opportunity. I'm trying to think. There was one other one I had in mind. So we talk about liquid staking, picks and shovels coming to fruition in DeFi. I wanna. I'm like trying to think without like too much bias to things that I own. I mean, okay, here's something, full disclosure, I'm clearly invested in the NXM token by Nexus, but I think insurance has barely seen its day in DeFi. A lot of treasuries in DeFi are uninsured, which is nuts to me because they're earning like 10, 20%. And their assets, if they're in Aave or Compound, I get it. We all think of them as like the safest protocols, the blue chip protocols. But how are you going to explain to your investors or to your community that you lost X amount of money when you could have insured it for 2.6% annually? So I think insurance is very underdeveloped, and Nexus has been really trailblazing there. So I think the Nexus mutual insurance will be incorporated into more products. Like it'll just be a part of like a checkout. You'll, click on Curve to deposit some into some liquidity pool, and you'll have the option to add Nexus insurance. There's also ArmorFi, which allows you to stream, continually run insurance until you no longer want to run it. Options is another area that's pretty underdeveloped, but lots of activity there, with Open and Hedgic and Ribbon. I think Ribbon's one of the coolest projects. I didn't invest in it, but I did earn something from the airdrop. So take that with a grain of salt. I guess I have some upside if that token ever becomes if it ever becomes transferable. But Ribbon is like Yearn for options selling. So Yearn is what you just deposit into a vault. It does all sorts of like, different investing strategies, and you make money. But Ribbon is specifically for option selling strategies, which I will say, be careful. Like there's a lot of people that are getting into that sort of option selling strategy exposure, not realizing that you can also lose. Selling options doesn't mean that you always win. Like if the market goes against you, you're going to lose. So yeah, I think that's about it, Ben. Other than like anything that's like future of work or like realizing a future that is more digital first. I think Gitcoin continues to be one. Gitcoin's one of the most important projects in crypto, and good for them to have launched a token because they've been working for years, and I think it's been a very thankless sort of role. And I'm happy now that they have a token that allows the community to sort of own Gitcoin and funding open source software. Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, but those are some
Yeah.
of the things that are really top of mind for me.
Awesome. Well, DeFi Dad, I don't want to keep you too much longer. Where can and this has been great, and I think the show notes are going to be packed with goodies and different things to explore. So the DeFi space, although we said it's in the early stages, like clearly disintermediating and decentralizing and reinventing a lot of these things, each of which deserves its own series of podcasts because they're just fascinating. So where can my listeners find out more about you, or where would you like to send them?
So two obvious places. One is go to defidad.com, DEFIDAD.com. That'll just take you to my YouTube. My YouTube channel has a playlist called DeFi for Beginners. That would be what I'd recommend to anyone who's new to DeFi. Another one is follow me on Twitter at DeFi_dad. That's a good place. And gosh, actually, you know what? Also, too, worth sharing. I mean, I'm going to be joining. It's a common friend of ours. I'm going to be joining. It's a more boutique DeFi fund, which is Fourth Revolution Capital. So if you go to fourthrevolution.capital, I'm excited to join their team because I've known them for about a year now, and they've basically been friends that we talk about, what's the future of DeFi look like, and they have a vision of really trying to like build out that Web3 world that we talked about, like that like if we're not going to like radically experiment and like push ourselves to an uncomfortable place, like what's the point of being here? So yeah, I'm like really excited. So if anyone is interested, if you're building a new DeFi protocol, like definitely go to fourthrevolution.capital, or just reach out to me on Twitter. I'm always interested whether you're trying to raise money or if you're just looking for some feedback. Like I will, as a part of my like commitment to Gitcoin grants, I will continue to try to help as many teams as possible in DeFi. No strings attached to that. One of the truths that a lot of people don't realize is, I mean, if you get a hold of me, I absolutely love to learn about new projects, and I'm not. I would say I'm pretty generous with my time. I love to meet new people and kind of learn what they're building, and if especially if it's something that I can help other people to learn about, maybe create a tutorial. All of that is a part of the work that I want to do for free for the community. I believe it all sort of comes back to me in the form of some good. I don't know whether it's through the price of Ether or whether it's maybe I get to work with a team in the future as an advisor. So yeah.
Awesome. Great stuff. And I'll link up all of those things, and stoked to finally have it public that you're joining Fourth Revolution Capital. Because
yeah, really excited to join them, and yeah, they're an investor in Charged Particles as well. I mean, it's funny because they've been investing in all these projects because we were, good friends and constantly in contact. So makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the cool things is they're really hell bent on they really believe in pushing forward on public education. So I want to just I think the goal is, again, like we need to build a system where anyone living anywhere with any amount of money, as long as they have an internet connection, you should be able to participate. And that's what's broken in the old world. But I think it's going to take time. It's not perfect yet, but I think we're going to get there with DeFi.
Awesome. Well, thank you, DeFi Dad. Really appreciate you coming on, and great to see you. There you go. First off, thank you very much for listening all the way through. I hope you got a lot of value out of that conversation. As always, you can find show notes, links, and more at altassetallocation.com. Please share this with anyone you think might be interested and derive any value from this conversation. And as always, you can reach out to me for any feedback or questions. Please give the video a like, or even better, subscribe on YouTube or your podcast player of choice. This really helps others find the podcast or the video as well. Thanks a lot. Hope everybody has a fantastic day, and stay safe out there and invest wisely. Cheers.